It should have been a night to remember. My retirement party, the culmination of decades of hard work. Everyone was supposed to be celebrating my achievements, cheering, laughing, and congratulating me. Instead, something felt off. Here, Mom, Claire, my daughter-in-law, said, holding out a glass of champagne with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. To your retirement. I took the glass from her, pretending not to notice the way she was watching me, her fingers lingering on the rim a moment too long. I tried to brush it off. After all, we were at my retirement party, surrounded by friends, family, and laughter. There was no need for me to be suspicious, but something in Claire's demeanor had shifted. Thank you, I said, raising the glass, trying to make small talk. To a new chapter. But as I brought the glass to my lips, I saw her eyes flicker toward the drink. She was staring too intently and my heart skipped a beat. I swallowed, the bubbly liquid tasting like metal. I shook it off, blaming it on my nerves, but a strange wave of dizziness hit me. I steadied myself, the room spinning slightly. My legs felt like rubber, and the laughter around me seemed distant, muffled. My eyes darted toward Claire, who was smiling a little too widely now. I didn't trust her and I didn't know why. Maybe it was her sudden interest in my drink. Maybe it was the way she kept glancing at me when she thought I wasn't looking. I wasn't about to let her get away with whatever she was up to. I quickly swapped glasses with Robert, who was sitting next to me. He didn't even notice. I stared down at the champagne in my new glass, considering my next move. Are you okay? Robert asked, noticing my pale face. You look a little off. I'm fine, I replied, forcing a smile. Just a little lightheaded. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just a case of dizziness. Something was happening, and it was all tied to Claire. The party felt like it was unraveling before my eyes, the celebration turning into something dark. To your future, Mom, Claire said again, raising her glass in a mock toast. Yes, to the future, I replied, my voice tighter than I intended. She was watching me closely, waiting. I could feel it. The tension hung in the air, thick enough to suffocate me. I took another sip from the glass I'd swapped, hoping that it would steady me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to uncover something far more dangerous than just a little surprise at a party. I couldn't explain it, but I knew this night would be the start of something much darker. The party continued, but it felt like I was in a fog. The laughter and clinking of glasses around me felt distant, like they were happening in another world. My head was clear now, but the unease lingered. I glanced around the room, my gaze naturally falling on Claire. Her smile was still there, but it was tight, forced, too perfect to be real. She was talking to Robert, but there was something in the way she was standing, too close, too eager. I had never really noticed how often she would touch him during conversations, her hand brushing his arm as if she were trying to stake a claim. Why would she do this? I thought. I had done nothing but welcome her into the family, treated her like my own daughter. And now this. It was all starting to add up. But what was she after? I tried to shake the feeling off. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe I was just paranoid. But something about Claire's behavior didn't sit right with me. My heart pounded in my chest as I noticed Robert wasn't looking at me, wasn't paying attention to anything. His face seemed distant, as though he were somewhere else entirely. It was like the night had turned from a celebration to a performance, and I was stuck as an unwilling spectator. I excused myself from the crowd, needing air, needing clarity. My feet took me to the quiet, secluded corner of the garden. I leaned against the cold stone wall, trying to steady my breathing. I couldn't let this go. Not this time. Claire, I called, my voice a little sharper than I meant it to be. She appeared from the corner of the patio, her eyes wide with feigned surprise. Mom, is everything okay? She asked, her voice dripping with sweetness. That same smile was still there, but it didn't reach her eyes. I took a step forward, my heart racing. What did you put in my drink? Her eyes widened, just a fraction too much. What do you mean? I saw you, Claire, I said, my voice lowering, barely a whisper. I saw you slip something in. Don't lie to me. She laughed, though it didn't sound like the carefree laugh she usually had. You're imagining things. It was just champagne. Maybe you're just feeling overwhelmed. with everything happening tonight. I could hear the shakiness in her voice, the way her words stumbled. It made my blood run cold. No, I said firmly, stepping closer to her. I know what I saw. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at me. The mask of sweetness faded just slightly, and for the first time, I saw something else. Fear? Guilt? It was hard to tell. You're overreacting, she finally said, trying to smile again. Maybe you should go inside and rest. It's been a long day. She turned away, her shoulders stiff as she walked back into the house. But I didn't follow. I stood there, feeling a gnawing ache in my chest, a whisper in my mind telling me that this wasn't just a bad night. It was the beginning of something much darker. I had always trusted Claire. I had always believed she was part of the family, someone I could rely on. But now, as I stood in the garden, the air heavy with suspicion, I couldn't ignore the growing certainty that she wasn't who I thought she was. And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. There was something much bigger brewing under the surface, and I was going to find out what it was, even if it meant confronting the darkest parts of my family. The morning after the party was quieter than usual. I woke up with the taste of champagne still lingering on my tongue, but it wasn't the drink that was weighing heavily on me. It was Claire's face, her smile, the way she acted as if everything was perfectly normal. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted the night before, and I couldn't understand why I hadn't seen it sooner. Why hadn't I recognized the warning signs? As I sat down with my coffee, I let my mind wander. The house was silent, save for the ticking of the clock. I needed to think, to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. I closed my eyes, trying to clear my thoughts, but they always returned to Claire. The first time I met her, I thought she was perfect for Robert. Sweet, charming, ambitious, everything I'd hoped for him. I never expected her to be anything other than a caring, loving wife. But over time, little things started to bother me. Small, subtle jabs at my family that she always disguised as jokes. The way she spoke about my son, as if she could control him, mold him into whatever she wanted him to be. The way she talked about her career, her friends, her life, always positioning herself in a way that made her seem like the center of the universe, and everyone else just orbiting around her. I thought I was just being paranoid. But now, after what happened at the party, I couldn't help but wonder, had I been blind all along? I thought about the years leading up to this moment. How Claire had always been so quick to charm people, especially Robert. How she'd made sure everyone around her, family, friends, even strangers, saw her as the perfect wife, the perfect daughter-in-law. But I could never fully trust her. Something about her never sat right with me, and I brushed it off as jealousy or insecurity. But last night felt different. I could still feel the sharpness of her smile when she handed me that glass. The way her fingers lingered on the rim, just long enough for me to notice. I should have said something sooner, confronted her then. But I didn't, and now I regretted it. I had let my guard down for so long, and this, whatever this was, had been building right under my nose. My thoughts drifted to the first few years of Robert and Claire's marriage. They'd seemed so happy, so in love. But I couldn't ignore the subtle cracks that had appeared along the way. The times I'd caught her giving Robert that knowing look, the one that said she had all the power. The way she manipulated him, always getting her way, making him believe it was what he wanted, too. I used to think it was just the dynamics of a new marriage, young love, passion, all that. But now, looking back, I realized how much she had changed Robert. He wasn't the same man I'd raised, and that realization stung more than I expected. I closed my eyes again, but this time, instead of trying to push the thoughts away, I let them wash over me. The times Claire had made cutting remarks about my family, the way she'd subtly turned my son against me, making him feel like he owed her more than me. The way she always managed to insert herself into every conversation, every moment, as if she were the one who deserved to be in the spotlight. The memories came flooding back in pieces, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I had been so blind. All those years, I had been accepting her as part of the family, allowing her to charm her way into our lives while she was quietly orchestrating everything. I suddenly felt a deep, aching sadness, I had trusted her. I had opened my heart to her, made her a part of my family, and this is how she had repaid me, by betraying me in the most cruel way possible. But even worse, I realized that I had trusted Robert too. Had he known about all of this? Had he been complicit in her manipulations, or had he been blindsided too? I didn't have all the answers, but one thing was clear. This was just the beginning. Whatever Claire had planned, I wasn't going to let it continue. I couldn't. Not when the people I had trusted most had been lying to me all along. I took a deep breath and stood up, my resolve hardening. I wasn't going to let this betrayal define me. I wasn't going to let her win. It was time to face the truth, no matter how ugly it was. And I would make sure she paid for what she had done. The days after the party felt like a blur, the air thick with tension. My mind wouldn't stop racing. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Claire's face, her fake smile, her too perfect laugh. It wasn't just about the drink anymore. It wasn't just about what she had slipped into my champagne. No, it was everything. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much she had manipulated my entire family, including Robert. I had always believed that our marriage, my relationship with Robert, was built on trust. He was my partner, my rock, and together we had built this life. But now, the more I reflected on everything, the more I saw how distant he had become. He wasn't the same person anymore. Claire's influence had seeped into every corner of our lives, and I had been too blind to notice. The truth hit me like a cold slap. Robert had been under her spell for years, and I hadn't seen it. How could I have been so naive? I had always thought Claire was just a little overbearing, a little too eager to please, but that wasn't the case. She had controlled everything, him, me, our family, and I had let it happen. "Mom, are you all right?" My son, Jack, asked, breaking me from my thoughts. He was standing in the doorway, concern written all over his face. I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I don't know, Jack. I don't know what's real anymore." He stepped into the room, sitting beside me. "What do you mean?" I hesitated, trying to gather my thoughts. How could I explain all of this to him? How could I tell him that his wife, the woman I had accepted into our family, the woman I had trusted, had been manipulating us all? "Robert," I started, my voice shaking slightly. "I think he's been changed. By Claire. By the way she's controlled him. And I've been too blind to see it. She's been slowly working her way into our lives, weaving a web, and I've let it happen." Jack looked at me, his eyes narrowing. "You're saying Claire's been controlling Dad all this time?" I nodded, feeling the weight of the truth settle in. "It's not just him, though. She's been manipulating everyone. She's been tearing us apart bit by bit, and I didn't see it." I stood up, pacing the room as my frustration grew. How could I have been so stupid? She's played us all like puppets. And now I'm left wondering if I even know who Robert is anymore. Jack stood as well, stepping closer to me. "I don't know what to say, but you're not alone in this, Mom. We'll figure it out together." I stopped pacing and looked him in the eye. "I don't know where to begin, Jack. I don't know how to fix this. How do you fight someone who's manipulated your entire family?" Jack hesitated, then placed a hand on my shoulder. "You start by taking back control. You don't let her win." His words were simple, but they struck a chord with me. I couldn't keep letting Claire tear my family apart. I couldn't keep being passive, pretending everything was fine. If I wanted to fix this, I had to act. But how? How could I ever repair the damage that had already been done? How could I take back control when I wasn't sure where to begin? Claire had worked her way into every part of our lives, every conversation, every decision. And now she had destroyed the trust that had once held our family together. The realization that my entire life had been orchestrated by someone I thought I could trust stung more than I could express. Claire wasn't just a manipulative daughter-in-law. She was a poison in our family, and I had been blind to it for so long. I sank back down into the chair, my mind spinning. I had to confront her. I had to take back control. But where would I start? What was the first step in confronting someone like Claire? Someone who had buried herself so deeply into my life. One thing was clear, though, I couldn't let this go on. I couldn't let Claire continue to tear everything apart. I had to act. And soon. The weight of everything that had happened was suffocating. The morning light filtered through the window, casting long shadows across the room, but no amount of sunlight could chase away the darkness settling inside me. I sat there, staring out at the garden, lost in thought, every smile, every act of kindness from Claire replaying in my mind like an endless loop. At first, it was so easy to forgive her. She was family, after all. She was the woman who had married my son, the one who had claimed her place in our family, and I had welcomed her with open arms. But now everything had changed. The facade she had so carefully constructed was crumbling, revealing a woman who had poisoned my family from the inside out. I had been so blind. I could feel the bitterness rising in my throat, the rage building as I thought about everything Claire had done. The lies, the manipulation, the subtle way she had turned everyone against me, against us. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that nothing in my life had been as it seemed. I had been living in a world where trust was a lie, and she had been the architect of it all. The question lingered in my mind like a heavy weight. Should I get revenge, or should I let karma take its course? The temptation to confront Claire directly was overwhelming. Every part of me screamed to confront her, to make her understand the depth of the pain she had caused. I imagined what it would feel like to watch her squirm, to see her crumble under the weight of her own lies. But was that the right thing to do? Would it make me feel better, or would it just drag me down to her level? I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I wanted to make her pay. I wanted to scream at her, to tear down the perfect image she had built, to expose her for the manipulative, deceitful person she truly was. Every fiber of my being screamed for revenge. But then a thought crept into my mind. Was that really the answer? Was revenge what I needed to feel better, to heal from the betrayal? No. I took a deep breath, letting the air fill my lungs as I tried to calm myself. Revenge wouldn't heal me. It wouldn't restore what had been broken. If anything, it would only make the wound deeper, more painful. The power didn't lie in vengeance. The power lay in me walking away, letting go of the anger, the resentment, and allowing myself to move on. Claire had already taken so much from me, and I couldn't let her have any more. I couldn't let her control my emotions any longer. I realized then that reclaiming my dignity was the true act of strength. By choosing to let go, to rise above the bitterness and hatred, I would regain the power that had been stolen from me. I wouldn't let her poison my life any longer. But that didn't mean it was easy. Every part of me wanted to confront her, to demand answers, to make her feel the pain she had caused. The rage I felt was intoxicating, and the thought of seeing her break under the weight of her actions was so tempting. But I knew deep down that this wasn't my battle to fight. Life would deal with her in its own way, and I had to trust that. The hardest part wasn't letting go of Claire. It was letting go of the anger inside me. It was realizing that no amount of revenge would bring me peace. The only way to find peace was to move forward, to rebuild my life without her in it. I stood up, my legs shaky as I walked to the window. The garden outside was peaceful, untouched by the turmoil inside me. I could do this. I could walk away. But that didn't mean I would forget. I would never forget how Claire had betrayed me, how she had torn my family apart. But I wasn't going to let her control me any longer. I would rebuild, stronger than ever. And in time, I would let karma take its course. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back at me seemed different, somehow. The weight of betrayal still hung heavy on my shoulders, but there was a spark in my eyes now. A fire I hadn't noticed before. It was the fire of someone who had finally decided to stop being a passive participant in her own life. Claire had taken so much from me, my trust, my peace, my sense of security. But she hadn't taken everything. I still had my dignity. I still had the strength to rebuild. And that was exactly what I was going to do. I had spent too many years letting Claire weave her web around me, around Robert, around everyone in our family. But now, the strings she had so carefully threaded were unraveling. I had a choice: remain caught in her grasp or pull myself free and take back what was mine. I decided to put my emotions aside. No more wasting time on the anger that consumed me. No more giving her power over me, over my happiness. The time for vengeance had passed. Now it was time for me to regain control of my life. The first step was reconnecting. I reached out to old friends, friends I hadn't seen or spoken to in years. People who had once been a big part of my life, but had been pushed aside by Claire's subtle manipulations. Margaret, I didn't think I'd hear from you again, Julie, my old college roommate, said when I called her. Her voice was warm, genuine. It felt like nothing had changed, even though so much had. I know it's been a while, Julie, I replied, feeling the weight of my own words. I've been out of touch. Life happens, she said, but I'm so glad to hear from you. We should catch up. And we did. Over the next few weeks, I rekindled friendships I had let slip away, reconnecting with people who had always valued me for who I was, not who they thought I should be. Slowly, I began to feel like myself again. My confidence returned piece by piece, with each conversation, each shared laugh, each connection that I had thought was lost forever. I started to realize something important. The real power in my life wasn't Claire, it wasn't Robert, and it certainly wasn't the toxic environment she had created around me. The real power lay in the relationships I had built over the years, the ones that were based on trust, respect, and mutual care. Claire may have thought she could control everything, manipulate everyone around her into bending to her will, but in the end, I had something she didn't, a network of loyal, trustworthy people who valued me for who I was, people who didn't want anything from me, people who had never tried to change me. As I continued to reconnect, I found comfort in these friendships. They reminded me of who I was before Claire came into our lives, before I let her manipulations consume me. With each call, each meeting, I felt stronger. But Claire didn't like this. Not one bit. I could feel her growing anger, even from a distance. Every time I saw her, her smile was more forced, her demeanor colder. She was losing control, and that wasn't something she was used to. She had spent years cultivating her influence, creating an image of herself as the perfect daughter-in-law, the perfect wife. And now, with every connection I rebuilt, with every step I took toward reclaiming my life, that image was crumbling. I could see it in the way she looked at me, the way her words felt sharper, more cutting. She was losing her grip on my family, and she hated it. But I wasn't about to let her take back what was mine. The tides were turning. Slowly but surely, I was finding my way back. But I knew that Claire wouldn't go down without a fight. She would lash out, try to regain control, and this time I would be ready. The real battle had just begun, and I was ready to fight for my life, my dignity, and my peace. It wasn't just me anymore. Claire had made the mistake of believing that she could manipulate me into silence, that I would quietly fade into the background while she took control of everything around her. But now, the cracks in her perfect little world were starting to show. It started subtly. At first, I wasn't sure if it was just my imagination, or if people were truly beginning to see Claire for who she really was. But one by one, the people she had wronged, friends, colleagues, even distant family, started to speak up. The mask she had worn for so long, the perfect daughter-in-law, the sweet wife, was slowly starting to peel away, revealing the ugly truth beneath. I had always known that Claire had an agenda, but hearing the stories, the experiences from people who had once trusted her, was like a punch to the gut. There was Kathy, her old colleague at the law firm, who revealed how Claire had stolen credit for her work. There was Janet, a family friend, who talked about how Claire had planted seeds of doubt about me, trying to turn Robert against me years ago. Each story was more heartbreaking than the last. At first, I didn't know how to feel. Betrayal ran deep, but a strange sense of relief washed over me. I wasn't alone in my feelings. I wasn't the only one who had seen Claire's true nature, but had been too afraid or too passive to speak up. But now, with each confession, I could feel the weight lifting. People were finally seeing her for who she was. The more I learned, the more I realized that Claire had never cared about family. It was never about love or support. It was always about control, about power. She had wormed her way into our lives, used us, and twisted everything around her to serve her own needs. She hadn't just manipulated Robert. She'd done it to all of us, carefully setting traps, planting doubts, and making sure that no one would ever question her. I had been a fool, but no longer. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about justice for all of us who had been hurt by her. And the truth was, I didn't need to lift a finger. Karma was already at work, and it was taking shape right before my eyes. Claire had always been so careful, so controlled. She had worked so hard to keep up the appearance of a perfect life, a perfect family. But now, everything she had built was crumbling. I watched from the sidelines as her world spiraled out of control, each small misstep leading to a bigger one. Her carefully crafted reputation had been destroyed, piece by piece, as more people came forward with their stories. Her friends began to distance themselves. Robert's colleagues, once charmed by her, started to see the cracks in the facade. The whispers started to spread, rumors, half-truths, and outright revelations about Claire's manipulation. The truth was out there and she couldn't run from it anymore. It didn't take long for her to realize what was happening. The panic was evident in her eyes whenever I crossed paths with her. The perfect, cool composure she had always shown was gone, replaced with desperation. She tried to act like nothing had changed, like everything was still fine, but I saw through it all. She was losing her grip, and she knew it. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Watching her unravel was more satisfying than any revenge I could have planned. She had built her empire on lies and deceit, and now it was falling apart. And as much as it hurt to watch her struggle, a part of me knew that this was the consequence of her actions. Claire had made one fatal mistake. She had underestimated me. She thought she could break me, silence me, and take over. But in doing so, she had exposed herself for who she really was. And now, the consequences were catching up with her. For the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. I hadn't had to lift a finger to make her pay. She was doing it all on her own. And as I watched her lose everything she once held dear, I realized that sometimes the best form of revenge is simply letting life take its course. The day of reckoning had come. It felt like the world had been holding its breath, waiting for this moment. Claire had no idea what she was about to face. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. Every time I saw her, she was trying harder and harder to hold onto the remnants of her dignity, but it was clear she was losing her grip. She had done everything she could to control the narrative, to keep her facade intact, but the truth had already come out. The lies were exposed, and now she had nowhere left to hide. I had stayed quiet for so long, letting the events unfold around me, but it was time to confront her. No more silence. No more pretending like everything was fine. I had been hurt too much, and now it was my turn to demand the truth. I didn't call her. I didn't send a message. I just showed up. The quiet tension in the room was palpable when I walked into her house. She stood at the door, her eyes immediately scanning me. She had a small, tight smile on her face, but I saw the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. She was trying to act calm, trying to maintain control. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice steady but firm. "Of course," Claire replied, though I could hear the hesitation in her voice. "Come in. What's this about?" I didn't wait for her to usher me in. I stepped past her and into the living room, my heart pounding in my chest, but my resolve stronger than ever. "Enough of the games, Claire," I said, turning to face her. "I know everything. I know what you've done. The lies, the manipulation, everything. And I'm not going to sit here quietly anymore." Her eyes flickered with panic for just a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "What are you talking about? I don't know what you—" "Stop lying," I interrupted, cutting her off. "I want the truth. I want to hear you admit it. Everything. All the ways you've twisted things, turned people against me, and used your so-called charm to manipulate everyone in this family. I want to hear it from your lips, Claire. I want to hear you admit how you've poisoned everything, how you've poisoned us." For a long moment, she didn't say anything. She just stood there, frozen, like she didn't know how to respond. And in that silence, I felt something shift within me. I wasn't angry anymore. The fire that had burned so brightly inside me for so long was fading, replaced with something else, something far more powerful. It was acceptance. Finally, Claire's facade crumbled. She collapsed into the chair, her face pale, her hands trembling. "I never meant for it to get this far," she said, her voice small, almost a whisper. "I never meant to hurt anyone. But I needed to feel important. I needed control. I've always been scared, and this was the only way I could hold on to something. I didn't want to lose you, Robert. I didn't want to lose everything. So I did what I had to do." The admission hit me harder than I expected, and for a moment I felt sympathy for her. I could hear the pain in her voice, the bitterness and regret that she had buried so deep for so long. But as I looked at her, as I saw the full weight of her actions laid bare, I realized that this moment wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about making her feel better. It was about me. "I trusted you," I said quietly, the words thick with emotion. "And you betrayed me. You used my family. You used my husband. And for what? For control? For power?" She didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. The truth was out, and so was her mask. The woman I had once thought of as family was nothing more than a stranger now, someone whose choices had broken everything. I took a deep breath, my chest tightening. "You've lost everything, Claire. You've lost Robert. You've lost me. And the worst part is, you did it all for nothing." For a moment, I just stood there, watching her crumble. There was no satisfaction in it, no triumph, only an empty, hollow feeling that came from knowing how deeply betrayal could run. "I don't want revenge," I continued, my voice soft but resolute. "I don't want to be the one to tear you down. You've already done that yourself. You've destroyed everything with your own hands. The power was never in my anger or in revenge. The power is in me walking away, letting you face the consequences of your own actions." I turned to leave, but then I stopped. "Goodbye, Claire. I hope you find a way to live with yourself." And with that, I walked out, leaving her behind. I didn't need closure. I didn't need anything from her. I had already found peace within myself. The real victory wasn't in watching her fall. It was in walking away and choosing to reclaim my own life, my own dignity. As I closed the door behind me, I felt the weight of the years of manipulation finally lift. It was over, and for the first time in a long time, I could breathe again. The days after that final confrontation with Claire felt surreal. It was like I had stepped out of a nightmare and into the daylight, blinking against the truth I had been running from for so long. Claire's life, once so perfectly crafted, was now in shambles. She had lost control, and now the consequences of her manipulations were unraveling faster than she could manage. The family dynamics had shifted irreparably. Robert, once so deeply entrenched in her grip, was slowly finding his way back to me, but it wasn't the same. Things could never be the same, and that was okay. As for me, the aftermath was bittersweet. I could feel the weight of the years of manipulation slowly lifting, but the scars, though healing, would take time. Claire's betrayal had fractured something deep inside me, but with each passing day, I realized that the true healing came not from the shattered pieces of the past, but from the future I was now free to create. I had spent so long looking for closure, seeking answers to questions that would never be fully answered. I had wanted Claire to understand the depth of her wrongs, to feel the weight of the betrayal she had caused. But now, I knew that closure wasn't something I could expect from her. It was something I had to give myself. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need Claire's apology. What I needed was freedom. Freedom from the toxic grip of betrayal that had held me for so long. And once I had given myself that, everything else fell into place. For the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. Not the version of me who had been manipulated and controlled, but the woman who had learned to reclaim her strength. The woman who, despite the pain and heartbreak, had survived. I had lived through Claire's web of lies, and now I was free. I spent the weeks after the confrontation reflecting on everything I had learned. I spent time with Robert, trying to rebuild the broken pieces of our relationship. It wasn't easy, but slowly we began to rediscover the love and trust that had been buried beneath Claire's poison. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that was enough. I reconnected with old friends, people who had always supported me, people who reminded me of the woman I used to be before Claire's manipulations took root. With them, I rediscovered my joy, my sense of self-worth, and most importantly, my ability to trust again. But trust would come slowly. I had learned that the hard way. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, watching the sun dip behind the horizon, I realized something. The hardest part of this journey had not been confronting Claire. It had been confronting myself. I had spent so many years letting fear and resentment control my life. But now I could see clearly. I could see that the true power didn't lie in holding onto anger or in seeking revenge. The true power lay in letting go, in moving on. I smiled, the weight in my chest finally lifting. Life wasn't going to be perfect, but I was stronger than I had ever been. And that strength, that growth, was something Claire could never take from me. As I looked toward the future, I realized just how much this chapter of my life had taught me. I had learned about betrayal, yes, but I had also learned about resilience. I had learned about the strength that comes from within, the strength to walk away, to choose peace over anger, and to trust in my own ability to heal. The future was mine to shape now, and I was ready. In that moment, I realized that the greatest gift Claire had ever given me wasn't the betrayal. It was the freedom I had found in walking away. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. And for the first time, I could say that I was truly, completely free. This was my new beginning, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. As I sit here reflecting on everything that has happened, I realize just how far I've come. This journey, this painful, emotional journey, has shaped me into someone stronger, someone more aware of who I am and what I deserve. I've lived through the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the loss, but I've also learned how to rise above it all. I'm no longer the woman who let herself be controlled by someone else's lies. I've taken my life back, and I'm ready to live it for me. The relationship with Claire is irreparably damaged. There's no going back from what she's done. And part of me mourns the loss of the family I once knew. There was a time when I thought she was part of it, a daughter-in-law I could rely on, someone who would be there to share in our joys and sorrows. Now I realize how much of it was a facade, and that realization still stings. But as much as I mourn the loss of that version of my family, I also feel liberated. No longer bound by the need to keep peace with someone who never truly cared for me. No longer tethered to the weight of Claire's manipulation. I've freed myself from that toxic grip, and now I can breathe again. I've come to terms with the fact that some people will always disappoint you. No matter how much you try to protect them, no matter how much love or trust you give, some people will choose their own path of destruction. Claire made that choice, and now she has to live with it. I can't fix her. I can't change her. And honestly, I don't need to. What matters now is that I've learned to let go. I've learned that I don't have to stay in anyone's shadow, especially not someone who has tried to control me. I think back to all the years I spent trying to make things work, trying to please everyone around me, trying to keep the peace. I thought that was the way to be loved, to be accepted. But the truth is, I was sacrificing pieces of myself just to keep others happy. I let Claire's games, her manipulation, take over my life, but no more. I've stopped playing her game, and I've learned to put myself first. For the first time, I'm living for me. It's not easy, of course. The scars of betrayal run deep, and there are days when the hurt resurfaces. But now, I understand that healing doesn't happen all at once. It's a journey, and I'm taking it one step at a time. I'm allowing myself to grieve the losses, to mourn the relationships that will never be the same. But I'm also allowing myself to heal, to rebuild, and to move forward with strength and purpose. I look ahead to the future now, not with fear, but with hope. Hope that I can create a life filled with the things that matter most: love, trust, peace. A life that I control, where the people I surround myself with truly value me for who I am, not for what I can give them or how I can be manipulated. As I think about everything I've been through, I realize how much I've grown. I've learned that betrayal doesn't define me. It's how I choose to rise from it that matters. And I choose to rise. I choose to live a life of my own design, where I no longer let the actions of others dictate my happiness or my worth. The truth is, I'm no longer afraid. No longer afraid of the pain, of the loss, of the future. I'm stronger than I've ever been. And the future, whatever it holds, is mine to create. With a quiet resolve, I let go of the past. I release the anger, the hurt, the disappointment. They no longer have power over me. I have reclaimed my life, and it's time to live it fully for myself. And in doing so, I find peace. The journey hasn't been easy, but it's been worth every step. I've survived the betrayal, and now I'm thriving despite it. And that, in itself, is my greatest victory.